Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this ongoing discussion about the application of AI in project management. Today, I'm going to introduce you to Bruno Morgante, who's got many years' experience in PMO and project management generally. Just before we dive into that, just introduce myself. I'm Lloyd Skinner. I'm the CEO of Greyfly.ai. We've produced an intelligent project prediction tool that uses AI to provide executives with delivery intelligence to increase project success. So over to you, Bruno, and welcome.
Thank you, Lloyd. It's very nice to be here with you today. So my name is Bruno Morgante, and I used to introduce myself with I solve problems and deliver results, which is what I actually do. I am the Global Head of PMO at the Adecco Group. And as you said, I have 17, now a little bit more than 17 years of experience in project management. And in particular, during the last 6 years, six and something, I focused on building and leading successful PMOs. Another thing to mention clearly is the activity I do as a pro bono mentor, where I spend some of my free time helping young, brilliant individuals and people in need, providing pro bono guidance, support, advices on leadership, personal development, career development, but definitely also on my field of expertise, which is PMO, portfolio, program, and project management.
Fantastic. Thank you for that introduction, Bruno. And I look forward to hearing your answers to some of these questions about the uptake and the impacts of AI in project management. I guess the first question for me is what use cases do you see around AI in PM?
Well, when you manage a project, there are a set of activities that you always have to go through, and some of them are particularly boring, but still important. I definitely believe leaving some of those activities, tasks, to AI would definitely be good for us human beings to focus on what we are actually much better than robots, which is being humans. So I split this into there are some things like the boring stuff, tracking risks, defining mitigation actions, tracking issues, and following up on the actions. This is necessary in all projects. We will still have to do it, but then are we using right now the benefits of the data that we collect out of it? I don't think so. In many organizations, I don't think so. When I think about lessons learned, so you complete your project, potentially, hopefully successfully, but not always. And you do the lessons learned because PMO is asking you to do the lessons learned. Are you using that information later on? Is this helping? Based on some of the patterns that we see, there are clear possibilities to predict even before we start a project. If that particular project is going to be easy, complex, potentially a success, or already we might already know that it's going to be a failure, and all of that is something that AI would definitely help us in doing it.
So just to summarize that, there's I think you're indicating the mundane tasks could be supported by the application of AI. You mentioned reporting and tracking several times. And then the big point I think you were making was about the use of data. And the use of data to be able to predict the outcomes of projects. And one thing you said there, which I really like, is that you mentioned that may be at the start or even before you've commissioned a project as well.
Yep.
So that's great. So basically, the reporting and the prediction side. So if you could move forward with those type of use cases, what sort of benefits? You mentioned there would be benefits. What sort of benefits would you see?
Yes, there are two clear benefits that I see. Potentially more, but let's focus on these two. One, we would have project managers that will be focusing on the strategic activities in project management. Being these one of the example I always make is, as a project manager, you need to bring all the people sitting together at the same table. Now, potentially it's a virtual table, but sitting together at the same table and use their creativity, their knowledge to work together on a problem and to solve the problem. This is a wise use of human beings. The same would be, properly communicate, clearly communicate about your project with your sponsors, with your stakeholders. This is something that as humans, we would definitely be much better than AI in doing so. And that type of connection that you are able to build as a human, it's incredibly good. So having project managers focusing on that, on doing that, compared to the other stuff, it's definitely going to be a big benefit. The other one that I see, I briefly mentioned before, when we are able to, before even initiating a project, when we are able to look at based on a set of data or set of information that we have collected and analyzed, make predictions and adjustments, it is already going to help us to improve our planning, to propose something that is actually a project that we are going to be able to deliver successfully. And this is going to help everyone. It's going to help the project team. It's going to help the organization. It's going to help the customer. It's going to help the final customer. It's absolutely going to be a benefit for everyone.
Brilliant. Yeah. So freeing up the human to focus on the creative or the more strategic elements of the project. Hey, are you familiar with the term augments the human?
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah. It's a term that I think so. I think that's, maybe a way of summarizing what you were saying, that augments the human so that they can focus on the more creative side, the decision making, the influencing side. And then the other piece that you were talking about was based on prediction, improving planning. And I think the point you were making there, that the impacts are just beyond the project, beyond into all of the stakeholders of the projects, is fantastic. So thank you for that, Bruno. Now, would you think that would vary between sector or type of project, as it were?
Partially, yes, but not completely. What do I mean is that there are some definitely some common aspects in all projects across all sectors, and we know that. However, there are some projects which are clearly less complex, less unique. So these are more the repetitive. They are all going to be the same. So in those type of projects, clearly, independently in which sector they are, clearly the application of AI is going to bring a lot of benefits into those type of projects, because they are like always the same. When I think about, I don't know, IT infrastructure projects, and they might be very repetitive, different industries, different realities, different countries, but still it's the same stuff. That definitely would be beneficial. But then we know that there are some other projects which are particularly complex or particularly unique, something that we might have never done before. And then in that case, it's difficult to use. It's difficult to gain the same level of benefits. We are always in this learning by doing activity. This is where, of course, you apply these adaptive methodologies, frameworks, more than the predictive ones. Over there, potentially, I see these positive impacts less strong than in the first case. But I would definitely not focus the conversation more on a sector-based, but more on a type of project-based, based on the complexity and unicity of the project.
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer. So less on the sector, but more about the uniqueness of the projects. But even those that are to some extent unique, that there is still a level of benefit that you could have, I think, is what you're saying. So that's brilliant. And thank you for that sort of summary in terms of how you'd use and the benefits and that type of thing. So if this was easy, I guess everybody would be doing it. What sort of challenges do you see in terms of implementing the type of tech that you're talking about?
Yes, that's true. Leaving aside the technological aspect, so imagine that we would have, and maybe we do have right now, AI tools available. There are definitely 2-3 elements that we definitely need to consider. First of all, this is usually, it's the one I'm repeating every time. It's the low level of data literacy that I see in so many organizations. And what I mean with this is there are not too many out there which do believe in the fact of being transparent and speaking with data. And this is still being perceived as a strange thing in a lot of companies. And that's definitely something that has to change. I'll tell you more later about that. But definitely the low data literacy for me, it's the big item. And I would say the second one is somehow a consequence of the first one. It is the data that we have available. Because of this low data literacy, we might have no data or low quantity of data. And then when you look into this data, the quality of the data is particularly problematic. And this is really something, like, as any AI system needs to be fed with data, and not only it's a particularly big amount of data, but also good quality data. So that definitely is a thing. Which, again, as a part of those two elements, and I can imagine putting the two, like, even if you are able somehow to fix the data problem, what's the level of the executive sponsorship when you try to propose something like this in a company? You need to have a sponsor. And the sponsor needs to be someone that is the first one in charge, the first one there to say, yes, that's the direction I want the organization to go. I want our organization to become a data-driven organization, a transparent organization. If that is not there in place, even if you are able, on the bottom, at the working level, to collect your data, clean your data, that is something that you definitely are going to face as an obstacle. So
it's interesting, because for me that sort of sounds like any successful project needs a good sponsor, don't they? And and I think that's what you're saying. And just to put that into context, where do you see that sponsor sitting within an organization? I mean, is it the chief exec? Is it, the head of projects? What sort of person do you think that is?
Oh no, I definitely see it sitting at the C-level. Yes. Okay. It's if it is not the CEO, it definitely needs to be the CIO or the CTO or the CDO, depending on the company. But still, it needs to be a C-level discussion, because this is potentially going to drastically change the way a company operates.
Yeah, yeah,
And this is not just something that you can decide and decide to implement at the let's say at the head of PMO level. Like a head of
yes,
PMO can be the first one preparing the field and starting the conversation,
yeah.
but that needs to be sponsored at that level. Absolutely.
So I guess if it's at that slightly lower level, and of course some PMOs now, like yourself, are, you know, probably fairly senior in your organization, but I think what you're saying is even at that level, you're going to hit some level of resistance to change. You know, I can imagine if you're presenting, you know, back to your earlier point about predictions, maybe that will get challenged, you know, and all of that sort of stuff as well. So.
Of course. You know, if you live in an organization where over the past N years, the only criteria to decide what initiative to work on, what initiative was passing the go no go, it was well, it was requested by the highest paid person in the room. Well, then you will have a problem to say, okay, but based on the data that we have, this is not the right move. Or maybe it is the right move, but not at the right time. Or maybe it might be something that we need to adjust somehow in order to make it successful. And having that conversation without the right level of sponsorship, it's not going to end well.
Yes, I can imagine, and no doubt, you know, you and I have been there, and no doubt others listening to this have been there as well. You know, so it does go back to your classic sponsorship within, or your portfolio management within a project, but with this added dimension. But okay, so we've got data and data literacy, and actually the production of the data afterwards, plus the sponsorship. So, you know, if that's the case, what sort of actions, what practical action could a company do to move this stuff forward now, as it were?
Few actions that I have in mind at different levels. Definitely, if you are a project manager right now and you consider yourself a good project manager, or maybe even a great project manager, I definitely would suggest to improve your human skills, those that are still called the soft skills, and they are really not soft, they are the human skills. Because this is what in few years from now, it is going to stay. So focus on what is actually going to still be there. You will still need people, as I said before, gathering other people, sitting together or virtually sitting together at the same table. This is necessary. So focus on that, grow, improve. You might be already good at that, improve even more. This is one of the things that I always say to the young, you know, just out of the university, young graduates or early in career that willing to be entering in project management. They ask me, hey, Bruno, what do you think? Yeah, focus on that. That is going to be incredibly important. Of course, you need to learn how to plan. Of course, you need to learn the basics, but that skills are incredibly important. For those who are non-project managers, I definitely would suggest to at least learn the basics of project management, the foundations of project management. Because the more and more, and this is a trend that we see happening, it is actually happening in all companies, more and more of what was supposed still called in some companies business as usual, it is turning into projects. So there will be more and more request of that type of skills. So this is important. This I'm saying it's for non-project managers, or even maybe potentially not considering becoming project managers, but learning that skills are is incredibly important for the future. Now, as an organization, I definitely think the other aspect that is important, that would definitely support an organization, prepare an organization to move in that direction, it is working on your data. You need to ensure that you have the data. You need to ensure that the data are with the right level of quality, that they are meaningful, that you can be later on in a position to use them. And already start analyzing this data in your organization. If you're not doing, or if you are doing it but not so well, improve, do it better, because that is the only possible way you have to introduce any of those type of technologies that are going to help you in future. And then at the same time, if you have someone that might not be yet at the C-level sponsor that we look for, but someone that, let's say, gets it, that is interested into that, well, then start bringing awareness in the organization about why it is important to be transparent, why it is important to speak with data. And this is, let's say, a big chunk of preparation work for the future. Yes.
Excellent. And I know you know, obviously you talked about the data there. From a technical challenge point of view, would you envisage organizations building this tech for themselves? Would you imagine looking for experts? How would you see that operating?
I think you will have both. You will have both, depending on the type of companies and the skills, and also the speed. Like the reactive speed of what is happening out there. Right now, it's it's still something. Like everyone is talking about AI, but they still see as something in a distant future.
Yeah.
Something like, well, it will come one day, we'll get there. So it's not. I don't think it is perceived as just behind the corner, or actually already being used.
Just coming around the
Exactly.
corner. But
Exactly.
Bruno, that's been fantastic to chat to you. If there was one thing that you wanted people to take away from this conversation about the adoption of AI in project management, what's your sort of killer conclusion, as it were?
My conclusion would be it's not if it is coming. It is coming. It's about when, and it is about being prepared before it arrives. There is a nice anecdote of a long back interview made to Jeff Bezos about what is going to change in the next 10 years. And he replied saying, I would rather, I mean, it's an interesting question, but I would rather focus on what is not going to change in the next 10 years, because this is where you can build a business plan, which is true. So what is not going to change in the next 10 years? Humans, we are still going to be there, hopefully. If we are there, we are still going to interact with each other. So this is why I'm saying these human skills, improving them, focusing on them is going to be incredibly important. AI is going to come. It's going to be disruptive for a lot of companies in a positive way. You need to be prepared to get it and to have it as in a positive way. Otherwise, you might be lagging behind. And then with the speed that all of that is moving, if you are behind, you risk to stay behind.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Bruno. That's been fantastic chat with you today. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to hearing from you again in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Lloyd.
Thank you.